When I need answers about anything to do with personal growth, I go straight to my mom and my aunt. Here they are, Priscilla Babin and Tina Gilliatt with the Sister Sauce. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sister Sauce. I'm Priscilla and I've got my gorgeous sister Tina across from me on the computer. Hey Tina.
Hello, Priscilla.
Are you happy it's summer?
I am. It's not technically summer, I guess. When does summer officially start? Because
I
it's
don't
always
know.
later than I think it's going to be.
Yeah, all those dates are later than I think they're going to be.
Yeah, for
But
me,
today's
I've
the last
always
day of school.
considered it like as soon as school's out, it's summer. And I know
Yes.
the kids are getting out of school about now. So,
And it's done been hot here. We've
yeah,
been hot.
for sure. Good old Louisiana heat and
Mhm.
humidity.
Yeah.
The odd thing is, I just picked up some of my winter clothes about 3 weeks ago because we kept having those little cold blasts where it would get cold for a day,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to pick anything up yet. So I just picked them up about 3 weeks ago.
The,
But
the, the spring psych out. That's like, oh, it's warming up. Nope.
no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not.
It's the time of year for layers. And now we're getting into the time of year where you go out with as little on as you feel comfortable and you bring a sweater for when you go inside somewhere because they got the AC blasting.
I always
Freeze
tease
out.
Olivia when it's cooler outside unexpectedly, I'll say, I don't know what they're talking about with global warming because this ain't global warming. And Livia's like, Mom, it's like her head's going to explode. Mom, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, I know it doesn't. I'm just messing with you. I love to mess with her head.
Oh, well, do you have any spicy hot sauce to go with the spicy hot weather?
Yeah, my hot sauce is more about myself, and I'm hoping that it'll help other people. And we've sort of kind of mentioned it in the past before when we've talked about different things like being organized and decluttering and keeping your mind clutter free so that you can think clearly. You know that I've always been a freak about that kind of stuff. I always like to organize and be organized and have a clean house, and I don't always have those things. And when I don't function as well. But I have a lot going on right now. And I keep feeling like I have deadlines I have to meet, and I'm going to miss those deadlines because there's so much going on.
Mm.
But the things that I have going on are not really anything out of the ordinary. It's things that I have to do normally, but there's just deadlines associated with them that I don't normally have, I guess. And also there's a few extra things thrown in there that are just making me rearrange a little bit. And so I kept struggling with all of that the other day, and I was super stressed because I'm thinking I need to be better organized about this. So last night I finally sat down and I took everything I had to do for the next week and I put it by day order so that I could get the big picture look at it and say, okay, I'm thinking I'm going to do all of this stuff on Tuesday, and there is no way all of that can happen in one day. So, where can I move one of these things to another day that it will make sense to make it do it on another day? Because some things are specific to the day, like whether I'm in the area or if I'm going to be at mom's house or whatever, and or if a store is open. So you have to work around those things. And I did that. And I did see a few things that I was thinking I should do on a certain day that I thought, well, I can't really get all of that done. What can I move? And I even reached out to people and said, hey, I'm supposed to drop that stuff off to you. Can I drop it off on a different day? Would it be okay to do it Tuesday instead of Wednesday? And so on. And I've got my whole little schedule lined up. And AJ asked me this morning if I could go to Sam's. And I said, let me check my little schedule. And so I looked
Good
at my
job.
schedule and I said, I think I can make that work. So I feel so much better about it. And so I just want to encourage everybody that if you're stressed out and you're feeling overwhelmed, whatever it is that's overwhelming you, write it down. Even if it's not a to-do list, even if it's just a problem that you have that you're trying to solve. I feel like once you get your thoughts on paper, a lot of times they're not as ominous or as scary as they are when you have them mixed up in your head and you're just overwhelmed. It's
Mm.
it's hard to explain, but it's when your thoughts are more organized, you don't feel so all over the place like we were talking about last week. And it's a much better feeling to know, okay, today's Tuesday or Wednesday, and these are the things I have to accomplish today. I can do this. I also love checking things
Mhm.
off of a list too. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
It's especially useful for people with ADHD because our shift of, from one focus to another is just so chaotic.
Yeah.
And like, for example, I have a routine that I do every morning preparing for the school day for my two kids. So I have all these items that need to be ticked off of the list. And I go through them in my head and I don't have them written down. At the beginning of the school year, I have to have them written down until I remember because I'll get off track over the summer. But for example, make sure they have full water bottles, make sure the lunches are packed, make sure I take my vitamins and put their vitamins on their little spots at the table so they can grab them when they come out, make the coffee, all the things, backpacks, all the things are ready to go. And then I do them and everything's cool. Well, I've been having people coming and working on the house and stuff. So I've had to add, go unlock the back door to my list, to let them in. And I've had to had change different patterns in the morning. And then all of a sudden we hit the end of the year and there's dress down days that were not scheduled way ahead. And there's days when the kids are not supposed to bring their backpack. There's days when they have to bring money for stuff because there's special treats for the end of the year or field trip, permission slips, all this stuff all of a sudden happens at the end of the year. And the last week or so, my morning is chaos because it's not written down and it's like my plan just got torn up and put in
Yeah.
shredder. And so this morning I'm sitting down, I've got music playing on my phone. I'm doing a coloring thing on the phone and Joey goes, "Where are my vitamins?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I've done nothing this morning. I got up and got Clover in the shower. That was it. That's all I did. I got dressed. But beyond that, oh, I did start the coffee. So I know
Last
what
day
my
of school.
priorities
Whoop,
are.
whoop.
Yes, thank God. So I don't have after
Now you'll be home and
from
you'll have a lot of things
so
off your list.
yeah, till the middle of August, I don't have to do this morning mishigas anymore. I can just wake up and be me, except for, special events like we have stuff going on tomorrow, but
And your contracting
and
work
then,
is winding down, so you don't have to worry
yeah,
about that much longer.
mostly,
Yeah,
mostly.
it's all
Yeah.
good. It'll all
Getting
work
there.
out. You just don't want to, sometimes I find myself going, oh, I can't wait till this period of my life is over or this. And then I think that's
Mhm.
terrible. I'm wishing my life away. And I don't want to be like that. But last week we were trying to get ready. The photographer for the realtor was coming on Wednesday or Thursday to take pictures one day, I don't know, to take pictures of our house. And it was insane how stressed I was over getting these pictures taken. Oh, it was actually Monday this week. And on Sunday, I guess because in my brain, I kept thinking all these things had to be done. And I wasn't anticipating how long they were going to take me to get done. Well, Sunday, I thought that I was going to physically just drop.
Mm-hmm.
And AJ was working out in the heat, fixing the pool and doing some stuff out there. And so he couldn't go anymore. I mean, we're not spring chickens anymore. And so he came in and he was sweating and he was overheated and dehydrated. And he laid down on a sofa and he said, I just can't go anymore. Now, I'm not talking at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This was like at 9 o'clock at night. We both were like wiped out. And I was so stressed out. I was thinking, I'm going to have to just go to bed and get up like at 4 to get everything done. And then AJ starts going through the list with me. Well, what all do you need to get done? And I realized I didn't have as much to get done as I thought I did. It was just, I just kept jumbling it all in my head and thinking, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other piece of it is that I take the not procrastinating thing to the extreme.
Yeah.
So I have a tendency.
You want it off the list.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tendency to procrastinate, and I know that. And so I've always worked against that. The Jerome Bruner quote about act yourself into a feeling. You're more likely to act yourself into a feeling than feel yourself into an action. I just start doing everything that needs to be done. And sometimes it's what's the word? It's counterproductive because I'm doing stuff that I really should wait to do. You know, like don't clean the bathroom today if it needs to be cleaned for 4 days from now.
Right.
You know, maybe keep it clean enough, but I mean, it's impossible to keep a house immaculate. So I do these things to myself and I'm like, I got to get everything done today so that I'm not stressed out on Sunday or whatever. And I think that's what part of writing my list by day helped me stop stressing over the feeling I had that I needed to accomplish everything in one day so that I wouldn't be stressed out on day 4. And so, yeah, definitely get it all on paper because you can't always, unless you're a genius, I can't keep things organized in my head like that. I just can't.
No, yeah, I keep lists on my phone.
No, it's different.
My phone is full of lists in the Notes app. I have a million reminders set on my phone. Every bill I need to pay, every place I need to go gets a reminder or it gets put into the calendar with multiple alerts ahead of time. I have Post-it notes stuck all over the house too. More is better in terms of if you need it to keep yourself on track. And like you said, if you're working hard, it doesn't mean you're necessarily working smart. You need to think about stuff before you do it. That's one of the problems. That's another problem I have where I'll get an inspiration, or as I sometimes say, I'll get a bug up my butt about something. And it's like, oh, I'm going to do that. And I don't really, measure twice and cut once, and sometimes literally, and end up chopping up many pieces of adhesive tile, and this kind of thing. And so, yeah, you definitely got to plan your work and then work your plan.
I love that. I love that. I love that saying. I always have. So what are we talking about today? What's our meat sauce?
Our meat sauce is us. Now our meat sauce is
Aren't we special?
we're gonna give some love to the other podcasts out there that we love.
Yeah.
Because we gotta spread the love around, right? And podcasts are so awesome because it's us, and also and also because podcasts, you can listen to things that stimulate you intellectually or entertain you or inform you. And you don't have to watch a video. I know a lot of people like to watch us on YouTube and they like to, I guess we're real funny to look at. So, or at least I am. But
that's true because we do get out of all our platforms, I think we get the most record our views
yeah,
or
on
listens or
YouTube.
whatever you want to call it on YouTube.
It's just your husband watching over and over so he can
I
ogle
think
you.
that's what it is.
Yeah. But I like podcasts because I can put a podcast on while I'm washing dishes, while I'm
Yeah.
folding the laundry, while if I'm vacuuming, I'll put my earbuds in and listen to a podcast with my phone in my pocket, if I have a pocket. Don't get me started on a rant about why women's pants should have more pockets, but there's podcasts for that too. So
I listen in the car when I'm driving.
yes, I do that a lot as well. And so that's like my Bible study time now is listening to a podcast that supports my faith. And so I've listened. I actually, I used to, when I was teaching Zumba, I listened to music, all kinds of music around the clock. And now I have to say, as much as I love music, sometimes I have to say, oh no, I need some more music. And I have to cut the podcasts off because I'm so into the podcasts and listening to them that I have to, and it's
Yeah.
kind of similar with the books that are the audio books. I was gonna say
Yeah.
books on tape, but that's
Same.
not the thing
Yeah.
anymore. They don't put them on tape. What's tape? The children are all laughing. They're like, why would you write a book on a piece of tape? Anyway, so I'm going to stop rambling. Our first one that I want to mention, and we're going to tell y'all the name of it and the descriptions and where you find these, you might have to Google it because some of these are on different platforms and not on others. And I've definitely found that there are some of these podcasts, you can find them you can find like us, a YouTube version of it, or check that user's Facebook or something to see, because you never know where they're putting them. And sometimes there's more episodes that aren't on, they're not uploaded or whatever. So
yeah, and sometimes they have multiple podcasts by the same name. Some people do that deliberately. They'll name their podcast the same name as one that's more popular. So just make sure you're looking at the right one based on the description and the people's names that we're sharing.
Yeah. The caster, I guess, the podcaster. I was
yeah,
like, what is it?
The host.
The host. There you go. The host of the show. Yeah. And we've got quite a variety here for y'all, but I feel like a lot of them are a little bit more in the deep introspective range, but some are entertaining too. So I like our list. I think we have a nice list.
Yeah, it's a good list.
So our first one, and you're gonna get a little extra on this lady today because we love her so much, is Brené Brown. And I know we've mentioned her before. So I think in some of my marinades I've mentioned her, but
we talked about some of her books too on our favorite books thing.
Yes. She has Unlocking Us with Brené Brown, and it's an Apple podcast, but you can find her on multiple platforms. I listened to her on the Amazon Prime Music app. So she's on more than one. There's lots of different apps you can have. So check the ones you have first. But if you might need to get a new app if you can't find her, but she's good. And here's her description. I've spent over 20 years studying the emotions and experiences that bring meaning and purpose to our lives. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: we are hardwired for connection, and connecting requires courage, vulnerability, and conversation. I want this to be a podcast that's real, unpolished, honest, and reflects both magic and the messiness of what it means to be human. Episodes will include conversations with the people who are teaching me, challenging me, confusing me, or maybe even ticking me off a little. I'll also have a direct conversation with you about what I'm learning from new research, and we'll do some episodes dedicated to answering your questions. We don't have to do life alone. We were never meant to. I think that's beautiful.
I do too. I think it's so funny too. Even the people that are ticking her off, I thought that's like our hot sauce. All you people in the carpool line at the school.
Oh God.
Sorry, don't mean to get you started. So our second one is also Brené Brown. And the second one is a leadership type podcast. It's based on her book, Dare to Lead, which debuted at #1 on the New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And it's become the ultimate courage building playbook for leaders at every level. And this is what she wrote. The Dare to Lead podcast will be a mix of solo episodes and conversations with change catalysts, culture shifters, and as many troublemakers as possible. Innovative, creating, and building a better, more just world requires daring leadership in every part of our daily lives, from work to home to community. Together, we'll have conversations that help us show up, step up, and dare to lead.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Oh
I'm
my.
a leadership freak, so I've always loved Brené Brown.
This is what the world needs more of. We need to get
Yeah.
these young people listening to this stuff so that they'll grow up right.
Yeah.
I keep sending, anytime I get clips of Brené Brown or any of these awesome people, Rainn Wilson, anybody who's trying to, change the world and shift the conversation, I send them, I'm like blasting. I spam my children, as they say. I keep spamming them. But, and here's one I've sent them, and we talked about her last week.
Yes, we
because
did.
she's amazing too. And Dr. Thema Bryant, her podcast is the Homecoming Podcast, and she has her Homecoming book. And as I mentioned last week, if you missed it, this summer they're coming out with a companion workbook to go with her book. So I'm waiting. I'm going to mention another podcaster later who's got a book out that I need to get to. So I'm like, my summer is going to be full of reading and listening, I think. But Dr. Thema Bryant is a licensed psychologist, ordained minister, and sacred artist. Using artistic expression, spirituality, psychology, and culture, Dr. Bryant Davis is an internationally recognized lecturer, performer, and minister. The Homecoming Podcast with Dr. Thema is a podcast to facilitate your journey home to yourself by providing weekly inspiration and health tips. Welcome home. It is wonderful. As I mentioned last week, it is almost like going to a therapist, but they can't hear you. So
Yeah.
you don't really get the real full experience of going to therapy, and I think everybody should. But
And she gives that disclaimer at the
yeah, she
beginning.
does.
Yeah.
It's not a replacement for therapy, but it is therapeutic, I would say. I really gotten a lot out of her podcast.
Oh yeah,
Love it.
I've only listened to the one episode that you sent me that you thought was so poignant, but yeah, I thought about that. It's now on my favorites. I just don't have time to listen to them all, but
it's so many.
I know, right? So the next one is somebody that I know personally. It's Holistic Living, Learning, and Loving, and it's on Apple Podcasts, but you could probably find it on other platforms as well. My friend Heather Eller and her friend Rachel have started this podcast. And I'll just share that Heather is a beautiful person inside and out. She's a mother and a wife and just an amazing person. And she has an environmental background. And so it's interesting to see her going in this direction with a podcast. I'm really excited for her. But this is what Rachel and Heather wrote about holistic living, learning, and loving. Welcome to the Holistic Living, Learning, and Loving podcast, your sanctuary for embracing life's simple joys and pursuing a healthier, happier existence. Join us as we bring you back to the basics, exploring the timeless wisdom of holistic living, from nourishing our bodies with wholesome food to nourishing our souls with mindful practices. We delve into a myriad of healthy living topics just as we share practical tips, personal anecdotes, and insights on everything from sustainable living to parenting insights. Whether you're curious about gardening, intrigued by the art of bookkeeping, or simply seeking inspiration for a more balanced lifestyle, our podcast has something for everyone. I read that description and I'm like, wow, we really need to work on our description. They did a fantastic job with theirs. I love that. It made me want to listen, and I listened to one episode and it was wonderful.
Just hearing that description makes me want to cook. It makes me want to go cook a pot of vegetable soup.
Yeah. Heather and Rachel kind of reminded me of us a
Yeah.
little bit. The banter and yeah, they're cute together. So definitely
That-
check that out.
When it's more than one person on a podcast, whether they're interviewing people or it's a duo like we are,
Yeah,
I find that if there's good chemistry between the people, it makes the podcast that much more entertaining and
of
engaging.
course. Yeah.
And there was a few of those on our list where it's two people and they really, you know, it's fun to just see the way they communicate, you know.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
good. Our next one is one that it's not that many episodes. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head how many episodes it is. I want to say there's like 15 or something. But I really, really interesting to listen to is the Confessional with Nadia Bolz-Weber. And it's also on Apple Podcasts, but it's on other ones as well. I think I listened to that one on Spotify. It's really interesting though. Here's the description. Forget the selfies and social media updates of everyone at their best 3-time New York Times New York Times best-selling author Nadia Bolz-Weber's new podcast, The Confessional. It's not new anymore. This was when it was new. Invites guests to share stories about times when they were at their worst. Guests talk honestly about what led to that moment, what they learned from it, and how they changed as a result. A former stand-up comic and recovering alcoholic, Bolz-Weber is a Lutheran pastor and founder of House for All Sinners and Saints in Denver, Colorado. Everyone needs grace and healing, no matter your beliefs. Step into the confessional with Nadia Bolz-Weber, a car wash for people's shame and secrets. She's what I love about that one, it amazes me the people that are willing to go on there, because it's not just, oh, I opened my car door and dinged somebody's car. This is like I murdered someone, or I have guilt and shame because somebody used me for, you know, the purpose of harming themselves, or, you know, stuff like that, like real deep. Like, in fact, one of the people who she has in the confessional is a young lady who is a granddaughter, I think, of the founders of the Westboro Baptist Church. And she was very, very racist and homophobic in her youth and said some really horrible things repeatedly on Twitter and everywhere else.
Because that's what she was raised to be.
Right. She was raised into it. And through having calm discourse with a lot of very patient and loving people from the LGBTQ plus community and just people who are more progressive minded, patiently having conversation with her, she really changed her beliefs and changed her entire life and her mindset and everything, and got herself away from Westboro. So that one was a really deep one. But every single one of these episodes is very deep. So you have to be in the right state of mind to listen, because
some of them are
get very
intense.
dark. Yeah, they're intense. The thing I love about it is the way that Nadia, it's not like Barbara Walters. She doesn't interrogate these people. She gently gives her own thought process. Like, she thinks about how she would feel in their shoes, and then she asks them questions based on that, and very gently. And she never forces anything out of them. You know, it's all their own willing communication with her. And at the end, after she closes it out and says goodbye to them, at the end, she has a little tag at the end where she offers a blessing for each person. And there's the blessing. You have to make sure you stick around and listen to that part, because they're so beautiful in the way she words it and the way she anticipates what they're their emotional and spiritual needs are in their situation. That's the best way I can phrase it, but it's
Yeah,
really
that's
beautiful.
well phrased. Yeah. I feel like it's like quiet conversation, and it's what needs to happen if we're going to all start understanding each other and empathizing with each other. You know, that quiet conversation where you're not cramming your beliefs down people's throats. Like you said, listen with patience and empathy, and don't judge, just listen. And yeah, I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, the next one is TED Talks Daily, and it's available on Apple and other platforms. Every weekday, TED Talks Daily brings you the latest talks in audio. Join host and journalist Elise Hu for thought-provoking ideas on every subject imaginable, from artificial intelligence to zoology and everything in between. Given by the world's leading thinkers and creators, with TED Talks Daily, find some space in your day to change your perspective, ignite your curiosity, and learn something new. If you're like me and you like listening to TED Talks, it's kind of fun because I go listen to TED Talks, or used to. I would go listen to them on YouTube, and it was no rhyme or reason, no introduction to kind of lead into it. And although Elise doesn't really give a long introduction or closing, she gives you a little tidbit at the beginning to help you think ahead. Okay, this is what's coming. And then she wraps it up a little bit at the end with some closing remarks, but it's very brief. Mainly, you're just listening to the TED Talk, and I feel like it's a way to manage your TED Talk experience, so that you listen to one a day and you get that experience. Yesterday, I listened to one. It was a lady talking about fireflies and her study of fireflies.
Oh.
And so it was, I won't share too much about it, but she's a scientist and she has some really interesting thoughts on that. And so I enjoyed it a lot. And it was funny too. She had a really cute wit about her.
And what's cool about that is you could scroll through them and kind of
And
pick.
that's what I did. That's what I did. I scrolled through and said, which one do I think will interest me? And that's the one I chose.
Fireflies. Well, I haven't seen a firefly in years.
Well, you have to, I don't want to give it away, but you have to listen to a TED Talk. Yeah, it's interesting because there's some reason that you don't see a lot of them.
Okay. Well, the next one is the one I was kind of mentioning before, and that is Geeky Justin Live, also available on Apple Podcasts and others. Justin Lee is the author of Torn, Rescuing the Gay versus Christian Debate, or I'm not phrasing that right, but his book is Torn. If you look up Justin Lee Torn, you can find his book. His new version of that book has just come out. So if you haven't gotten Torn yet and you were thinking about it, now's the time to go find it. Make sure you have the new edition, and be careful on Amazon, because I was trying to order the new one and it kept telling me that I already have it. I'm like, I don't have it. I have the old one,
Well, if you wanted to order another one, I mean,
I know.
On Amazon, what's up with that?
I was going to order the audio book, and it was like, you want to get the compatible audio book to the book you already have. And I'm like, no. So I might have to get from somewhere else. So, but anyways, his original book, Torn, was amazing. He is the creator of the Gay Christian Network, which has evolved into other things. It's kind of branched off, and so if you look up Gay Christian Network online, you'll find it'll probably bring you to his website. But he did a series of Facebook Live interviews, and they converted those into the podcast. And unfortunately, when I was listening to these, there was some gaps there was some missing, and I'm having trouble finding the certain ones, but the ones he has published are amazing. They're great. He talks to all different kinds of people. He even talks to his dad on one episode about his experiences with Justin coming out and things like that. And they call it Geeky Justin because he's geeky. He likes all kinds of fandoms and things, Star Wars, and he loves board games and everything. And his lives, they, with Facebook lives, you can have people commenting and stuff. And he would always be so engrossed in the conversation. He has trouble keeping up with answering people's questions because it's hard to have a conversation with somebody and be reading what people are typing to you. But almost always somebody would ask for him to ask the person he was interviewing if they like pineapple on pizza, which was kind of a fun thing to wait for. And spoiler, Justin likes pineapple on his pizza, and I do too. But but that's a really great one to listen to, especially if you are curious about LGBTQ plus issues. So go check out Justin.
Yeah, excellent. All right. And now the next one is one that actually you recommended, Priscilla, and I know you got a lot out of it. Beautifully Broken. It's on Apple Podcasts and other platforms as well, Spotify included. Lori Rollinger is a former pastor's wife who has endured losing her husband to a rare disease, but still remains positive that God has a plan for her widowed life. In her podcast, Lori shares her real life experiences from grief to joy and all the in between. She is a single parent raising 4 children and learning what it looks like to move forward without the love of her life. Lori loves to share how good and faithful God has been to her, even in the midst of her beautifully broken life. And I always think we are all broken in some way. And we can all benefit from listening to this podcast. When I was at one of the churches, I don't remember which church it was, but I was in the band, and I remember we sang the song "Holiness." I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's holiness. Holiness is what I long for. And our pastor had us add a verse, brokenness is what I long for, because this whole sermon was about how when you're broken, that's when you feel God the most in your life. And so it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it is a painful thing to go through, to lose somebody or to deal with an illness, but you can find God in your brokenness and be even closer to him than somebody who doesn't have broken parts in their lives. So definitely worth listening to.
Yeah. And her mom joins her on them later on. If you start from the beginning, after a while, her mom comes on, because after her dad passes away, she has her mother on to share her experience with widowhood at a later age, because Lori is like my age, I think. So she's real young.
Yeah.
Because I'm real young.
I'm not all grown up yet. I was going to say you are real young compared to me, but
you're young too. We're all real young.
We're spring chickens.
Now that's a very meaningful and deep one. We're going to switch gears a little here. One of my favorites, and this is a podcast, like Joey, my son, he really likes one of the other podcasts that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And so if that one is new, he's got to hear that one at bedtime. Like when everything is shut off, he wants me to sit in his room and listen with him while he falls asleep. Then I have to gauge, when did he fall asleep, so I can start it at the right point tomorrow, so he doesn't miss anything. But when we don't have a new one of that, there's plenty of these, and I love listening to it, and he does too. It's called Ridiculous Crime. And if you find the real crime drama podcasts interesting, but too intense or upsetting for you, this is the answer to that. This is the antidote right here. They are so funny. True crime is more than blood, guts, mayhem, and murder. Zarin Burnett and Elizabeth Dutton share outlandish tales of capers, heists, and cons that shine a light on the absurd and the outrageous side of criminality. Always 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous. This is Ridiculous Crime, a podcast by iHeartRadio. Now, just so you know, these two people have the best chemistry. They are hilarious. They are so funny. And I want to say it's also 99% family friendly. There are some episodes where they talk about situations where there's prostitution or, you know, drug use or stuff like that. So you got to take that into, you know, consideration. But there's like, I want to say there's zero foul language, colorful language, like none. So if you want to listen to us in the car with your kids, it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
And Joey's 13, so you know. He goes to public school.
And he goes to public school.
Yeah.
So I was sharing with my Toastmaster group the other night that you finally let Joey watch Ted Lasso. And when you were debating on it, he said, "But Mom, I go to public school."
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great one, though. If you need a good laugh and you want to just hear some of the most absurd and just outlandish stories, it's a lot of fun. It's a real lot of fun.
I have not listened to that one, but you've shared a lot of the podcast information with me, a lot of the episode information. Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll have little things at the beginning. They always have their intro. Whoever's like, they take turns like we do with, you know, who does hot sauce and marinade and whatnot. And so they have a little thing at the beginning. Whoever is doing their meat of the episode says, hey, you know, like if it's Elizabeth, she'll say, "Hey, Zarin, do you know what's ridiculous?" And he'll like, "I sure do." And then he comes back with some ridiculous fact that he found out that's not necessarily to do with crime. It could be anything. It could be like coffee flavored Cheetos or something, you know. Although I'll have to say, Elizabeth's the one who has the most food crossovers, and it really annoys the heck out of Zarin. He hates them. So it's fun to hear him get all cringy and upset when she talks about food crossovers. That's another little fun thing. And stay on at the end after they sign off, because they do a real creative sign off and relate the credits back to the storyline. And then at the very end, you have to listen so you can hear Elizabeth's nephew say "ridiculous crime" in his little baby voice.
Oh my gosh.
You got to hear him say "ridiculous crime."
Like my friend's little sister who can't say fire extinguisher or couldn't when she was little. She's a grown-up now. That's awesome. All right. So the next one is one that I stumbled onto, and I've only listened to one episode, but I loved it. And so it's now on my list, and I plan to go back to it. Wiser Than Me with Julia Louis-Dreyfus from the Seinfeld series. And so she has these other women that she interviews. I'll read the description. Julia Louis-Dreyfus returns for season 2 of her award-winning podcast, Wiser Than Me. Each week, she has funny, touching, personal conversations with iconic older women who are brimming with the kind of unapologetic attitude and wisdom that only comes with age. See, she could interview me. Julia sits at the feet of some extraordinary teachers. Well, maybe not this season. Discover who in this trailer. And of course, her 90-year-old mom, June. Tune in to laugh, cry, and get wise. All hail, old women. So the episode that I listened to was with Vera Wang.
Oh.
And yeah, and she's funny. I don't expect Vera Wang to be funny, but she is. She's funny. She's got a wit about her. And it was interesting because they were sharing some like behind the scenes stuff that goes on because uh, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was saying that when she first started out in acting and she would have to go to like an award show or whatever, she would just go buy a dress. And then the more popular you got, and as years went on, things sort of changed. And then it was like, we're going to connect you to a designer that will now design clothes for you for these events. And so she was sharing some of the things that went on behind the scenes, how she got connected to Vera. And it was really interesting. I enjoyed it. But I have to say, Vera Wang was very humble, surprisingly, too. That was another thing. She kept saying to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I am not wiser than you. Stop saying that, and she's like, you have to be wiser than me, or it wouldn't be fitting that I would have you on the show, because that's the show, wiser than me. So it was really cute. But I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's got a great sense of humor, and she has some fun with that. So that's a good one.
Our next one's another deep one. It's Soul Boom, and it is available on Spotify and other places. And Soul Boom is a series of intimate conversations hosted by Rainn Wilson from The Office. He was Dwight, exploring meaningful and inspiring topics that tickle the mind, heart, and soul. Never too precious, yet unafraid to touch the profound, Soul Boom digs into the core of the human experience, creativity, spirituality, and psychology, bringing to the conversation some of the most brilliant and heartfelt artists, thinkers, and doers. Soul Boom guides the listener toward transformation on both a personal and societal level. Also laughs.
Who knew Dwight, right? Who knew Dwight from The Office was so
and he
thoughtful.
founded a project called Soul Pancake. So if you've ever heard of Soul Pancake, they were the sort of parent situation of Kid President, I believe, also. Like a lot of things came out of Soul Pancake. So there's been a lot of things, and he's got some books too. He has a book that's Soul Boom, I believe, and then he also has King of the Bassoon. And more. What else does he have, Tina?
He has another podcast, and it's called Metaphysical Milkshake, which is the one I heard of before I heard of Soul Boom. And so Metaphysical Milkshake is a weekly podcast, and it's described as the show where we go deep, we get weird, and we search for the meaning of life along the way. In this show, your co-hosts in existential crimes, actor Rainn Wilson and scholar Reza guide you through conversations about life's big questions. And I have to say, when I first heard about it, I was a little hesitant, but I really enjoyed listening to it. It's, I don't know, I just thought maybe it would conflict with my Christian beliefs, but it's not like that. It's different.
I think it's Reza Aslan.
Did I say Asian? Yeah, that's my bad eyes. It is Aslan, Reza Aslan. Aslan. I can't talk today.
Neither can I. my lips don't work. My lips don't work and your eyes don't work.
Usually it's my eyes don't work. Yeah. It looked like an eye.
my eyes don't work some of the time, but today it's my mouth that's busted. I can't pronounce anything. We'll blame menopause. I want to write a new parody song. You can help me blame it on the menopause instead of the alcohol. AJ can play guitar.
There you go.
The next one is another funny one. That's another team, and it's different. The different episodes have different people on for the discussion, but it's not like an interview. what it is it's called The Alarmist, and it is definitely on Spotify. I'm not sure where else, but it's definitely on Spotify. And the host is Rebecca Delgado Smith, and her guests and her husband, Chris Smith, who was actually a guest star on The Office one time, is working with her on that. And so what it is it's who is to blame for history's greatest tragedies: the plague, the sinking of the Titanic, the breakup of the Beatles. Writer comedian Rebecca Delgado Smith, along with special guests, scrutinizes history's greatest disasters to find out what went wrong, and most importantly, who's to blame. This comedy podcast is the perfect remedy to our everyday anxiety. They say history repeats itself, not on the alarmists' watch. And it's very funny because at the end, they decide who's to blame. And sometimes, and most of the time, I really agree with them on what what they come to, their decision at the end,
or their consensus. Yeah.
Yeah, they have like a whiteboard, and they write people on there. That's like, the whiteboard is the alarmist jail, and they put people in the jail, and then in the end they do they scratch people off, they take people off so that they can limit how many people are in jail. But they did everything that they have done, even the Great Potato Famine. They've done a lot of them.
I love it.
So it's really entertaining. This one is a little bit more adult, the language and stuff. So grown-ups only probably for this one. She has two girlfriends who are New Yorkers who can get a little mouthy. So they are on it a lot. And those gals, yeah. So keep it to the grown-ups for this one, but it's really funny. And you learn a lot about these tragedies and things. They're not all tragedies. Some of them are just unfortunate things, but they were very newsworthy. So, like the Lindbergh baby, that one was real interesting. You learn all kind of background facts and deep dives on these things, so that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah. So the next one is The Lazy Genius, and we heard about it from another podcast that we listened to that I won't give that up yet, but we heard about it from there, and this is the description: part systems expert, part permission giver, Kendra Adachi, the lazy genius, is here to help you be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't. And here's what I like about Kendra's podcast. I feel like it's no fluff. It's just like, this is what I got to share today. Take it and use it however you want. She doesn't try to give you a lot. It's usually just her. So she doesn't give you a lot of discussion about it. She will share with you her thoughts and all. But I love it because it's like short and to the point, and it's and a lot of different ideas about different things. It's funny because I remember you got all excited over her garage sale one, and she's had some good ones. So definitely check her out and learn how to be a lazy genius.
And she's done a ton of episodes. So if there's something specific you want, you can search.
You can go look for it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like kitchen hacks and stuff like that. She's super interesting, and like you say, she keeps it simple and she keeps it real, and she's very humble. She never comes off like, well, I'm an expert and you need to listen to me. This is what I figured out, or and she gives credit where it's due if she found hints from somebody else or somewhere else. And she's very honest and straightforward. So I like
Kendra. And if anything, one of the things I like about her, and it says it in the description, part permission giver. She makes you realize that a lot of what we think, especially as women and moms, a lot of what we think has to happen doesn't really have to happen.
Or a certain way.
Bake the cookies from scratch for your kids' bake sale at school. You can go buy cookies and stick them there. You know what I'm saying? I feel like she would really identify with bad moms.
Yeah. And She's the picture of what you talked about in your hot sauce of in the area of working smarter and not harder and casting off all the stuff that's extraneous, you
Unnecessary.
need
Exactly.
to deal with.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I
She's a
love it.
lot of fun. And she's funny too. She's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Another one that I like, and this is kind of a niche one, if you want to think of it that way. If you are a lover of the novels of Jane Austen, then this is a podcast you got to check out. Especially if you've read them multiple times or seen the movies, that helps too. Um, it's called The Thing About Austen. It's another Apple podcast. It's also available on Spotify and others. And The Thing About Austen is a podcast about Jane Austen's world, the people, objects, and culture that shape Austen's fiction. Come for the historical context and stay for the literary shenanigans. Think of us as you would your somewhat cheeky tour guides to the life and times of Jane Austen. And the two gals, I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but the two gals who host it have very, very good. They're like us, like they have a good camaraderie. They sound like
Good
sisters, but
rapport.
they're not. Yeah,
Yeah.
great rapport.
Yeah. I wonder if
And
they talked on their podcast about Jane Austen's brother and
they might have. I have to confess, it's been a while since I checked it. I do subscribe and I keep seeing there's updates, but I've been reading these other books and stuff and got into Soul Boom and Dr. Thema and everything. So
I
I
know.
have to work it back in over the summer when I have time.
That's the thing. It's like
There's so many now.
today we're talking about 20 podcasts total, and some of them are weekly, and there's a one or two that are daily. And you're like, oh my gosh, when
It's a
do I have
lot.
time to listen to all of these? But they're so good.
But
Yeah.
as Kendra would tell us, you don't have to listen to all of them. She would tell
That's
us to
right. Pick
listen
and
to what we
choose
want to
what you
listen
listen
to.
to.
Yeah, but this, if you're especially, if you're like me, I get on a tear of Jane Austen. Like I'll be watching all the movies, I'll be reading all the books, and I get really, I get it, and that's kind of one of those another ADHD things where you obsess about a certain thing for a little while. And so I go back and forth in and out of the Austen bubble, to put it in a weird way. But the cool thing about them, what they do is they'll pick one thing, like Mr. Darcy's waistcoat or something like that. They'll pick like one item, and sometimes it's a pen or an item of clothing or a carriage, or they'll pick a thing, or they'll pick one of the characters' attitudes about something, like Emma's attitude about marriage or something like that. And then that's their focus. They get a very specific focus and then they discuss it. And sometimes they'll have a guest come on who's an expert in those times or actually Austen's books. They had the gal on who organizes the Jane Austen I guess it's a conference. It's like Austen Con or something.
Oh
They
my
had her one
gosh.
time. Yeah, that'd be totally up my alley, wouldn't it? But
Yeah. Yeah, for
Me and
sure.
Nico could go to that. But that's the kind of shenanigans they get up to. And they have a great sense of humor too. It's not just informative and it's not just for the love of Austen. It's to have a good time too. And theirs are kind of short, so those are really fun. And you can squeeze them in here and there. I need to squeeze them in more. Oh,
Yeah.
the good one is coming. I see it.
Yes. So this is a
Oh,
podcast,
good.
and it's probably the podcast that you and I have listened to the most and the longest
Mhm.
is The Office Ladies, and it's on Spotify and Apple and other platforms as well. They have a website, it's officeladies.com. The Office Ladies podcast is with Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, who played Pam and Angela on The Office, which you guys know is like one of our favorite shows. It was our favorite until Ted Lasso came along, but they actually rewatched the podcast and rewatch the show, The Office, all the episodes, and they talk about each episode, so each episode of the podcast is relative to an episode of The Office, the TV show. And they go behind the scenes, they do deep dives on locations and things like that. The description says, The Office, it's the ultimate Office rewatch podcast for you. Each week, Jenna and Angela will break down an episode of The Office and give exclusive behind the scenes stories that only two people who were there can tell you. They are amazing. They have great chemistry. They're best friends in real life. They've written a book together, and they've gone on tour, signing their book and doing like live episodes in front of an audience. They're just phenomenal. So funny. I have laughed out loud. I've cried in the car listening to them. It's just such an awesome podcast. And it's kind of wrapping up with the episodes are wrapping up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next. But they have a lot going on. They actually established a network of podcasts. And that's how we found out about The Lazy Genius, because of Angela and Jenna. And that was like the first show that they added to their little network. I don't know if that's the right term, network, but definitely if you liked The Office, you will love Office Ladies. But I've heard other people say that they never even watched the show and they love the podcast, which I thought was really interesting. So I don't know how that works. If you don't know the show, you're not familiar with what they're talking about. But I will say, one of the things that I got out of the show that I didn't really expect to get out of it, out of the podcast, that I didn't expect to get out of it, was just learning about the things that go on behind the scenes, like just like the terminology, for one thing, that they use on set. So breaking the fourth wall, that's one that all of us have kind of heard. But just the whole behind the scenes thing with props and with location scouting,
everything,
and
lighting.
Yes, just
Camera.
so interesting how they had to film things a certain way and break out the ceiling for a certain thing because of something else, and the animals that were involved in the show. Angela oftentimes had cat situations going on, or they had animals at Shroot Farms or wherever. They had trainers come in and intricate, very extensive instructions about how they can handle the animals on set and the safety issues. I mean, just incredible and just so insightful and learning. I was fascinated. I have been. I'm still fascinated with the show, but it's particularly some of the episodes. Like there's one with BJ Novak where he talks about, he played Rainn. That was his name, right? Rainn on the show. And BJ Novak is just brilliant. And to listen to him talk about the reasons that they did some things as writers and the ways that those things caused other things to happen, just phenomenal. I just loved it. As a media person, and I know you're the same way, as someone who really appreciates media and the ripple effects that come from it, it just really blew me away. I have loved it. And it's so funny because AJ is our biggest fan and he listens to our podcast faithfully every week. And he has to keep stopping it every few minutes to say, this is how I feel about this and this, and we laugh about it. You know, I tease him about it all the time. But for the Office Ladies, he never really listened to it, but he heard every single episode because I recapped it for him. And I'm like, oh, and listen to this. BJ Novak said this, and he said this. And we got to know the people behind the scenes that we didn't know from the show. Like, you know, it was just amazing how we got to know the creators, and then we found about other shows they were involved in, and we started watching those shows and discovered, and books they wrote. Just wonderful. I can't say enough about the Office Ladies.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you know, if a 13-year-old is hooked on it,
yes.
a 13-year-old boy hooked on it. then it's
Yeah,
gonna be good, right?
yeah. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. And if you're into The Office, another good one to listen to, and you would think, might say to me, Priscilla, why would I want to listen to a whole nother podcast about The Office if I'm already listening to The Office Ladies? Well, believe it or not, there is a little overlap because some of the things that they mention on Office Ladies are mentioned on this one, but not every single thing. And there's so much more to it that I never got bored and said, I know all this and turned it off. Never once. It's an oral history of The Office. And it is Brian Baumgartner who played Kevin Malone. And he does interviews with the cast and the creators. And he goes through, it's not intensive like The Office Ladies where they break down the episode bit by bit. His is a little bit broader and a little bit, his style is different. So it's really cool to listen to. And if you start to listen to an oral history of The Office, which has limited, I believe, episodes, if I'm getting the ones right in my head, he did one called The Office Deep Dive, which is everything. It's all of the interviews in full. I believe an oral history of The Office is somewhat edited for time and easier consumption. But if you're as big an Office nerd like me, go ahead and check out The Office Deep Dive with Brian Baumgartner, because that's like everything. It's the unabridged version
Yeah,
with all the
yeah.
interviews. So that one's even longer and deeper. That's what she said. I'm sorry.
Well, that's funny that you should say that because Brian Baumgartner also has another podcast called Off the Beat with Brian Baumgartner. And with the success of his hit podcast, The Office Deep Dive, actor and podcast host extraordinaire Brian Baumgartner, aka Kevin Malone, and I swear it's so funny to listen to him on the podcast because he sounds nothing like Kevin, and that just cracks me up. But Brian is taking you even deeper, that's what she said, into The Office and more of your favorite TV shows. Each week, Brian will sit down with a new guest to talk about their favorite jobs. They'll laugh, cry, crack plenty of inappropriate jokes as they discuss the inner workings of television industry, their favorite moments on set, never before told stories and secrets, and moving on from their most iconic roles. Fans will get to be the third wheel with their favorite stars as they learn everything they never wanted to know and then some. If you love The Office Deep Dive, you will truly love Off the Beat, featuring interviews with your favorite Office guest stars, TV personalities, athletes, and more. So yeah. And, I laughed about that because they referred to him as podcast host extraordinaire, and he really is. He's good at it. He knows how to podcast. I love him.
He's an excellent interviewer. He would be great as a TV host.
Yeah,
Like
he really would.
The Tonight Show or something.
If you can get the Kevin voice out of your head, he's definitely.
Yeah, he doesn't really sound like Kevin. There's a few people who do that, who put on a voice for a character, and then it's so off-putting when you
I know. But I enjoy listening to Brian as Brian. I mean, it just tickles me because I don't know, it's just so contrary to what we're used to seeing from
I guess it's not off-putting as much as it's confusing initially. You have to get used to it and accept this is what they really sound like. Like the gal who plays Rosa on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Stephanie Petras, she does not sound like Rosa at all. Rosa's got this deep husky voice, and then you hear her talk and she's got this high happy voice. She was the voice of the main character in the movie that I am blanking on, Disney movie.
Oh.
You'll
think of it.
Encanto. So
oh yeah.
So if you can picture that voice, that's her real voice, which is crazy. Another one that's a show related one, and when we talked about our favorite shows, this was way on my top of my list, The Good Place. The Good Place was Kristen Bell and Ted Danson, amongst others, and an amazing cast. It's only like 4 seasons, I think, long. It's great if you ever want to watch it. And if you've already watched it and you want this same experience like we've had with the Office Ladies, The Good Place, the podcast, is a great podcast for you. Especially if you've just recently watched The Good Place, or if you're rewatching it, this is another one where they do episode by episode and talk, but there's a little bit more wiggle room, excuse me, with theirs, where, they talk about the bigger picture mixed in with the episode that they're looking at. But I think they did this in real time because they refused to give spoilers for the next ones.
Oh, wow.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's a great show. And I'm going to read the description. This is what it says in their description. So disclaimer, and I'm not going to curse, but it sounds like it. So be careful. Make your ears careful. Holy mother forking shirt balls. If you haven't, here's my disclaimer. If you have not watched The Good Place, when they are in The Good Place, they are not allowed to curse. And it's not that they aren't allowed so much as they can't. So anytime they try to curse, it comes out mutated into other words. So that's why that was like that. So this is the official comedy and entertainment podcast for NBC's TV show, The Good Place. Subscribe and you'll get weekly behind the scenes stories, episode and performance insights, and funny anecdotes, hosted by actor Mark Evan Jackson, who plays Sean, with a rotating slate of co-hosts and special guests, including actors, writers, producers, and more. This podcast takes a deep dive into everything on and off screen, and he has all of his guests are like all the stars of the show, writers, and everything. And if you're a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan, Mark Evan Jackson was Kevin on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So check that out if you like The Good Place. It's awesome. Really fun.
Yeah, that does sound cool. And the last one on our list it's a behind the scenes look at the show The New Girl with Zooey Deschanel. And I love Zooey. And so she teamed up with Hannah Simone and Lamorne Morris from their show to do a rewatch. And this is the description. Go behind the scenes of Apartment 4D with the crew who called it home for 7 incredible seasons. Each week, real-life friends Zooey Deschanel, Hannah Simone, and Lamorne Morris rewatch their Emmy-nominated series New Girl and reveal the never-before-told behind-the-scenes escapades. Join them as they go bear hunting for grizzly hidden in the background. Plus, each week, they find a different version of the true American game. Here, the rules don't make any sense, and you'll leave more confused than when you arrived, but it's always a good time with best friends. Speaking of besties, they're inviting all of the Loft's favorite guest stars, writers, and directors to share their adventures on the set. So, and if you're an Office fan, Angela Kinsey, who played Angela on The Office, was a regular on The New Girl. And there's a lot of crossovers there. I don't remember all of them offhand, but definitely a lot of crossovers. I've gotten such a kick out of looking at some of the episodes of that. I did a rewatch of it a while back. I think it's on Apple TV or maybe it's on one of the other channels we subscribe to. But Livia kept saying to me, "Don't you like that show? You can watch all the episodes." And I was so glad because I had kind of missed the last 2 seasons of it. And so I did a rewatch and then watched the last 2 seasons, and it was fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
We've started to treat TV shows in our house the way we do book series. Like if there's a series we like and we haven't watched it in a while, it's like, hey, let's watch that again, and we'll go through the series. And if there's one that we haven't and that we've always been meaning to, it's on our list, then we start checking that one out. We just started Parks and Rec, so we're enjoying the heck out of that. That's another good one. Another one by writers from The Office. Coincidence? I think not. They know what they're
awesome.
doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Amen. Well, that was fun. 20 podcasts that you have to choose from. Well, 21 if you count the sister sauce, but we don't expect you to choose. We expect you to continue listening to us or watching us.
Yeah, don't give us up for one of the other ones, please.
I know, right? But you know what? We are people who believe in, what's the word I'm looking for? Abundance. We believe in abundance.
The more
We
the
have an
merrier.
abundance mindset. And so there's room for all of us.
Sounds good. I like that.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you would like us to marinate on this week? It really is your turn this week. I know last week I got confused.
We never, hey, at least I'm not calling what did I call? I kept saying soup. I kept saying soup instead of sauce when we started this thing. So
Yeah.
we've made
That was
progress.
why we changed it to marinade, because neither one of us could get it right ever. We kept coming up with the wrong name.
Soup. I got soup on the brain. Did you notice? The first thing I thought of with the holistic podcast was soup. I don't know what my obsession is. Okay.
Okay, so it's marinade.
Marinade. Yes. I want you to marinate on some thoughts by Brené Brown. Shocker there. We talked about her. This is number 3 for her in this podcast. I think. 2 podcasts and a marinade bonus. So I saw a little clip of her the other day on Instagram, and she was saying, don't go through the world looking for evidence that you don't belong, because you'll find it. Don't go through the world looking for evidence that you're not enough, because you'll find it. And her message, and I've seen it different ways too, the same message, but I like the way she said it. If you look for trouble, you'll find it. If you've heard that, or when you focus on a certain thing, it's easier to see that around you. Like if you all of a sudden get interested in buying a dog, you're going to see dogs everywhere. It's a like a mental loop that you get into. And she was saying that you need to have ownership of yourself, sort of. Our worth, our belonging, they're not negotiated with other people. It's our responsibility. We have our own worth, and our value is inside ourselves, and other people's opinions shouldn't matter. We belong to ourselves. And she said, you don't go through the world like that, trying to worry about what other people think and basing your self-worth on other people's opinions. So that's my marinade for today.
Yeah. My friend Chick, who passed away, God rest him, his favorite saying was, what other people think of you is none of your business. It's not important. It's a non-issue. So yeah, I love
it's
that.
a tough lesson, but it's an important lesson. And I think
it is.
It bears repeating. Just like your hot sauce today, you were saying you felt like we had kind of talked about it before, but my thought on things like that is if it's important, if it's helpful, it bears repeating over and over and over again until we get it drilled in, because it takes hearing some of these important lessons so many times before we really absorb it and use the information,
Yeah. It's difficult when you are someone like me, and I think you are a lot like me, when you want everybody's approval and you want everybody to love you. And yeah. I watched a TikTok, or maybe it was Instagram, yesterday, and I really don't know her that well, but Katherine Heigl was on there, and apparently she got some bad press. Like somebody said that she was a rude person, and whoever it was, that this clip was of an interview, and whoever it was that was interviewing her, I can't remember. who the interviewer was, but they said to her, "You've gotten some really bad press about the way you are with other people, and some people say you're rude." Which I thought, wow, that's like a Barbara Walters question, right?
Mhm.
He always called people on the carpet for things like that. And she said, they said, what do you have to say about that? And she said, I've gotten this question before. And in the past, when somebody said to me, do you think you're rude to other people? She said, I would always say, I don't think I'm rude. I don't believe I've been rude. And she said, but that's not my answer today. My answer today is no, I have not been rude. I have defended myself and spoken up for myself and refused to allow people to walk over me. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I'm a strong woman. Now, in my head, I'm going, she could be saying all this and still be rude.
Yeah.
But I don't know her well enough to make that assessment. But
Mhm.
I appreciated that, her remarks were true, regardless of whether they were based on what was being said or not. But yeah, definitely don't apologize for being strong and secure and speak up for yourself. Love
Yeah.
it. Well, this has been wonderful.
Yes.
So we'll be back next week with a special interview.
Mhm.
Until then, make yourself a priority.
And take care of you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to keep up on all the latest sauce. See you next time.